Would you please welcome to the stage CEO of ACHS, Dr. Karen Luxford.
Thank you very much and good evening everybody. I'm Karen Luxford, the Group CEO of ACHS and ACHS International. Firstly, I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we gather today, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and pay my respects to elders past and present, and I extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today. ACHS are excited to have the opportunity to be gathered here today with our esteemed guests and in this first face-to-face awards ceremony that we've been able to hold in 2 years. So wonderful to see you all here in person. In today's ceremony, we'll be celebrating the winners of the 2022 Quality Initiative Awards and the ACHS Medal, which will be presented by ACHS President, Professor Len Nataris, later on this evening. We would like to thank our panel of judges for our Quality Improvement Awards who have given so generously and devoted their time to evaluating the many high-quality submissions that we received in this year. And we've seen many of the challenges our colleagues have experienced and those who are demonstrating great resilience in facing up to those challenges that have come our way. I wish to thank our ACHS members for their continued dedication to quality improvement and our ACHS assessors for their professional efforts in assessing healthcare services against the safety and quality standards. I'd also like to recognise the outstanding leadership and dedication of our amazing ACHS staff and my executive team and the fantastic work that you've all done during this past year. Quality and safety are at the forefront of everything that we do at ACHS, and our staff work hard to support our members through this constantly evolving healthcare landscape. Thank you all again for joining us tonight, and we look forward to being able to celebrate these great achievements this evening. We've got a hashtag for the event, hashtag ACHS Awards 22, and we'd like to see you use that and share it on social media and share this event with your colleagues tonight. Please join me now in welcoming Professor Len Nataris, AO, President and Chair of the ACHS Board of Directors. Thank you, Len.
Good evening, everybody. It's an absolute pleasure being here, and for some of you who were here in 2019, you'll remember my prophetic words, the roaring 20s are about to begin. And it's been all downhill since then. Having said that, thank you, Karen, and good evening once again, everybody. It is a great pleasure to be here, and I've got to say I've been blown away by the trouble everybody has taken dressing up this evening, except for Brett Emerson. Brett can't. So moving right along, Brett, I borrowed yours. Of course, I'm Len Nataris, as you probably guessed, and tonight we're really going to be enjoying a fabulous evening. I've been told not to put these notes in front of the light because otherwise things won't work, but I have to tell you, Karen, I can't see the notes, so I've got to move them to one side. Tonight we're going to recognise a lot of important achievements, the important achievements of our colleagues and members. I'm particularly excited in celebrating the winner of the much anticipated Quality Initiative Awards and the prestigious ACHS Gold Medal. We're very proud to have a recipient of that medal here tonight from a previous year, last year, and congratulations on that. We've also got a special guest tonight, a guest speaker, and that is Professor Brett Sutton. And while Professor Sutton won't be here personally, and as Alison will say, signing autographs and having selfies. Brett has been kind enough to provide us with a special video, and I'm deeply indebted to him for doing that. There are a few people I'd like to acknowledge tonight, and in particular I'd like to acknowledge my fellow directors and indeed council members who are here tonight. They do such a splendid job, and they do it for the love of the organisation rather than for any other pecuniary interest. I'd like to send out a special welcome to good friend Adjunct Professor Alison Macmillan, PSM, Australia's Chief Nursing and Midwifery Officer. And as I said, I've known Alison for a number of years, and she has made a plethora of contributions, not the least being the chair from time to time of AHPPC. And AHPPC has become a premier and influential body during this COVID period. As well as being that, she's also been, as far as I'm concerned, one of our most important AUSMAT members. And as an AUSMAT member, she's certainly a deployee, but having been trained in AUSMAT, we would refer to her as an AUSMATeer. So welcome, yes, welcome. It was, believe it, and it was very special. Alison led our response to Diamond Princess when we rescued at the beginning of 2020 the Australian folk from Okinawa and brought them back to Australia. So Alison played an incredibly important role. But just one other fact about Alison that I'd like to mention, and that is that she sat as a councillor on ACHS for a number of years as well, representing Victoria. And I think that in itself is an important accolade. I'd like to also welcome and thank other distinguished colleagues who are here tonight, and every single person is distinguished here tonight. And I thank you for being here. They're not easy times we're in, but thank you for being a part of this fantastic event. I'd also like to thank Professor Stephen Tobin for his support of ACHS as our clinical advisor. Professor Tobin contributes immensely to ensuring best practice is followed in our clinical services at ACHS. Lastly, I acknowledge the work of the staff and the executive team at ACHS. Every member of the staff make this work, and the executive team do a fabulous job as well, with the wonderful leadership of CEO Karen Luxford. Karen's the CEO of ACHS, ACHSI, and ACHS-ME. I think there might be some other ones as well, but that takes care of those ones. Look, the pandemic has had a significant impact on the delivery of health services right across the world, and to remind people of the importance of what ACHS has done in terms of getting through this particular period has been incredibly important. ACHS has made a positive difference, one of standards, one of accountability, and one of improving outcomes for patients, for their families, and indeed for our clients as well. And I think that in itself is an accolade that you should all be proud of. The true merit of our commitment to standard and achievement is really your achievement, and I think you should be individually proud of that particular achievement and certainly celebrate that. And now I'm extremely pleased to be able to formally launch Australian Clinical Indicators Report 2014-2021, which is one of the most outstanding reports in healthcare, not just in this nation but in the world. ACHS has built a strong reputation through its clinical indicator program as an extensive healthcare data service, and we're proud to be providing this invaluable asset to our ACHS members to assist their quality improvement initiatives. I'm delighted to launch the new report, which summarises the data submitted to the Clinical Indicator Program, highlighting significant trends in data over time. A copy of the report will be on the website shortly, and there are copies here available tonight. On behalf of the board, I'd like to thank you all for being here tonight to celebrate our successes, and indeed pick up a copy of the report as you get the opportunity to, or look at it online. We'll continue now and continue enjoying the evening. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much, Len, for that warm welcome to everybody. It gives me great pleasure to be able to announce the highly anticipated winners of this year's Quality Improvement Awards from ACHS. We received many high-level entries this year, and I'd like to acknowledge once more the magnificent efforts from our panel of judges in making those tough final decisions, but also to the great work that has happened in health services across the country throughout this last year. This year, ACHS celebrates the 25th year of our annual Quality Improvement Awards. We received a very large number of applications from healthcare organisations across Australia. Indeed, the competition is very fierce. And the award recognises healthcare organisations for their outstanding quality improvement activities, initiatives and strategies. I'm going to start by listing each category in turn, and the highly commended people first, and their organisations, and then announce the winners. We'll show a short video for each of the category of winners, explaining their QI project and initiative, and then the winners are going to be coming up here to join us on the stage where Professor Len Nataris will provide them with their awards. So all awards are listed alphabetically, so there's no favouritism there. The awards are presented in the following three categories. The first category is Clinical Excellence and Patient Safety. The second category is non-clinical service delivery, and the third category is healthcare measurement. A highly commended certificate was awarded in the Clinical Excellence and Patient Safety category to the following healthcare organisations. Northern Health Victoria. For their submission, Northern Health Plural Medicine Unit. Sunshine Coast Health and Health Service Queensland, for their submission, a quality improvement project to limit unnecessary perioperative pathology. And Western Australian Country Health Service WA, for their submission, improving access to high quality stroke rehabilitation in country, WA through telehealth. So this year we've got two fantastic winners for the ACHS Clinical Excellence and Patient Safety category. And it gives me great pleasure to announce the first winner. Hunter New England Local Health District, New South Wales, for their submission, Supportive Care, What Matters Most.
Our team are delighted to accept the ACHS 2022 Award for Clinical Excellence and Patient Safety on behalf of the Live Alive study, clinicians and consumers at John Hunter and Tamworth Hospitals. Over the last 4 years, the Hunter New England Chronic Disease Network and Palliative Care and End-of-Life Care stream have joined forces with our hepatologists and people living with advanced liver disease to find out how to improve well-being, reduce symptom burden, and plan care with consumers according to what matters most. We designed the Live Alive study to centre care around real-time patient-reported measures that guide a transdisciplinary supportive care approach and was used to trigger psychosocial, nutritional, and symptom-focused interventions. We hoped this person-centred model would be better at addressing people's individual needs and would lead to better use of our health resources. Indeed, the clients and their carers who were randomised to the 12-week Live Alive study were 5 times more likely to have days alive and out of hospital, and had a 2/3 reduction in presentations to the ED or inpatient admissions. Clinicians, clients and carers reported the value of a change in the way care was delivered and improved confidence in their health service. So, the Live Alive study delivers a predicted net cost saving of $1 million per annum for Hunter New England, can be scaled to other centres, and is being adapted for other chronic diseases. The ACHS 2022 award celebrates the energy, creativity and dedication of a large group of people who have worked together to design a supportive care model for and with people with chronic disease that delivers what matters most.
If I could invite our President, Len Nataras, back to the stage, who's going to hand out the award. So if you can join me up here, Len, thank you. And then we will invite our award winners to come up to the stage to receive their award, please.
Let me hand this to you. There'll be no handshaking for the obvious reason, but well done and congratulations.
As I said, there were 2 winners in this category, and the second winner of the ACHS Clinical Excellence and Patient Safety category is Wandanerida for their submission. Wandanerida, a new residential model of care to treat eating disorders in Australia.
Thank you, ACHS, for this incredible honour. I'm Jodie Ashworth, the Executive Director of Wandanerida.
And I'm Katie, a participant at Wandanerida.
We aim to provide hope for over 1 million Australians who are living with eating disorders and make recovery a reality for them and their carers.
With the support of the federal government, the Butterfly Foundation opened Australia's first residential treatment in June last year.
Early consultation with the local First Nation elders gave us insight into the Indigenous culture and spirit of the 25 acres of Gubbi Gubbi country on which we operate. They generously gifted us with the name Wandanerida, which means gather together to blossom.
In just over a year, we've had over 70 participants from all over Australia graduate from Wandanerida. While most admissions have been overwhelmingly female, we've also supported male and non-binary admissions. Preliminary findings from ongoing evaluation are encouraging, and qualitative consumer feedback on the new pilot model of care has been exceptional. It's gratifying to know that our work is informing the development of new residentials all across Australia as we continue to learn, grow and help people recover from eating disorders.
Our new innovative model of care, Be Freed, provides a phased treatment structure to address not only symptoms and behaviours, but also the underlying psychological factors. This model also supports over 40% of staff members that have lived experience of an eating disorder themselves. It's a treatment approach that's unique to Australia and combines contemporary best practice alongside innovative complementary therapies.
We should say that startup wasn't all easy. Like the rest of Queensland, over the past year we've battled COVID and floods. Still, our participants are encouraged to be active decision makers in their therapy and care, and our warm and nurturing environment allows them to envision, establish and continue with ongoing recovery when they return home.
Finally, I'd like to thank the amazing staff at Wandanerida, our board and our healthcare partners.
My final message is to encourage others to reach out and seek support.
And we help make recovery a reality.
And I know the Wandanerida team are here tonight, so please do come and join us to accept your award. As you come up, I was honoured to be able to visit your facility as an ACHS member, and it really is quite an incredible place. So please do come and join us. So in the next category, a highly commended certificate was awarded for non-clinical service delivery to the following healthcare organisations: Hunter New England Local Health District, New South Wales, for their submission Collaborative Care for Vulnerable Patients. Royal Perth Bentley Group WA for their submission A Wellbeing Revolution, Humanity at the Heart of Healthcare. And STARS Queensland Health in Queensland for their submission Collaborative and Person-Centred Hospital Food Services. And the winner for the non-clinical service delivery category is Gold Coast Hospital and Health Service Queensland for their submission Embedding a Culture of Transformation at Gold Coast Health.
It's an honour to be recognised by ACHS for embedding a culture of transformation here at Gold Coast Health. Around 2 years ago, we launched our transformation program, which is really focused around redesigning the system which we operate in, tackling some of our hardest challenges, both around how we respond to external demand pressures, but also how we utilise our resources internally, to a scaled digital health acceleration program, where we're looking at ways at which we can give back significant amounts of administration time to our clinicians, but also to radically change the experience, both the staff and patients in our organisations, all the way through to really innovative models of care, where patients, when they need us most, can access care in the right environment across the health ecosystem.
2 years ago, I was set the challenge of turning our transformation vision into a practice that would work really well for Gold Coast Health. We've implemented a consistent methodology, robust governance, and we've designed a practical project delivery standard that can be used with any methodology. We've also put a lot of effort into building change management and project management capability across our organisation, and our organisational showcases are a great way to engage our clinicians and staff.
It's such an honour to be recognised, both in driving innovation in health systems, but ultimately to improve the care and the quality of care that we provide for our patients. So thank you again. I look forward to celebrating with all nominees and all successful award winners on the night.
So if Gold Coast could come and join us on the stage, please, to accept your trophy. So our final category for the Quality Improvement Awards, a highly commended certificate was awarded in the category of Healthcare Measurement to the following. Cabrini Health Victoria for their submission, Reducing Hospital-Acquired Complications, ACHS through Data Insights. Liverpool Hospital in New South Wales for their submission, Improving the Identification of and Support of Aboriginal Patients in the Emergency Department. And Royal North Shore Hospital in Sydney, Northern Sydney LHD, New South Wales for their submission, Anaesthetic Greenhouse Gas Reductions. And the winner of the ACHS Healthcare Measurement category is Hunter New England Local Health District, New South Wales, for their submission, a virtual clinical pharmacy service project.
Our mental health pharmacy team are very honoured to be receiving this award. It's a great acknowledgement of the hard work of everyone involved in the virtual pharmacy project in mental health. We'd like to thank the Australian Council of Healthcare Standards for this award, and also our General Manager of the Hunter New England Mental Health Service, Jonathan Holt, for coming up with the initiative to fund the virtual pharmacy project.
We'd also like to thank the teams on the ground at all the regional sites, Taree, Tamworth and Maitland, just for helping us throughout with all the logistics. And we'd also really like to thank the clinical directors for their help and involvement and encouragement really throughout the whole project.
Medications are the most common therapeutic intervention in Australian hospitals. They're often associated with a high risk of errors and adverse events. And our project aimed to provide clinical pharmacy services to 3 remote mental health units at Tamworth, Taree and Maitland.
The aim of our project was to promote excellence in the use of medications at the distant sites and ultimately to improve outcomes for patients within our mental health service. We did this through providing information to prescribers, other health professionals at the distant sites, and also to get in with the patients and provide information to them about the role medications will play in their recovery and in the long term.
The Hunter New England Local Health District people could come and join us tonight. I know you're here too. Congratulations to all our winners. It's very exciting to us to be able to see the sorts of fantastic work that our members are doing, and we're always excited to see the entries that come into the Quality Improvement Awards, and I think you can see the quality of the work that all our health services are doing when you see that illustrated through our award winners tonight. This year, we're delighted to have the opportunity to resume our first face-to-face assessor forums since the start of the pandemic. The assessor forums have been a great place for us to be able to connect and share member feedback with our assessors. And I want to acknowledge our fantastic assessors, many of whom are here with us in the room tonight, who've been very understanding and flexible and along with the flexibility we've seen in our member organisations, as we've all adjusted back to the on-site visits for assessments. ACHS also has a number of new assessors in this year that we've been very excited to welcome. So a big thank you to our ACHS assessors. And as the CEO of ACHS and ACHSI, I'm extremely proud of the outstanding work that our staff do every day and have done this year. Congratulations to all our team for your extraordinary hard work and the commitment that you show to our mission of safety and quality in healthcare. Our many achievements this year would not have been possible without our wonderful staff. So thank you once again, and a special thanks for organising this evening's proceedings to Gemma, Sophia, Teresa and Ali, and also to Linda O'Connor and her team for the Quality Improvement Awards. Thank you to all my staff. Now, I'm pleased to hand back to Professor Len Nataris to present the ACHS medal winner.
Thank you very much, Karen. And let me take this opportunity to congratulate all who've just won awards and been recognised, and indeed those who put their hands up as well and worked so hard to do so much. You do make a difference, and it is so important, that difference to everybody in this room and indeed everybody in this nation. It's a tremendous honour being here, and the ACHS medal is in its 38th year and provides a valuable spotlight, an invaluable, in fact, spotlight for an individual's outstanding contribution to the promotion of quality and safety in Australian healthcare services. This year, the judging panel had a difficult time because there were quite a few outstanding nominees, and 2022 has actually proven to be one of those years that challenged the judges in finding who was going to be the recipient of the award. I'm trying to draw it out so that we build the tension, you see. I'm delighted that the winner this year of the medal is none other than Professor David Pilcher. Congratulations, David, and I'd like to read, with your indulgence, a brief citation as to why we have seen that you're the person that should have this year's medal. Professor David Pilcher contributes to safety and quality in Australian healthcare, has been one of the most impressive contributions that have been made. Professor Pilcher has demonstrated distinguished leadership through his work using data to support safety, quality and continuous improvement in healthcare. His contributions have been felt across the entire healthcare system, with national leadership positions including the clinical lead for the Victoria Clinical Care Network, Safe Care Victoria Chair, ANZICS Centre for Outcomes and Resources Evaluation, Australian New Zealand Intensive Care Society, Adjunct Clinical Professor, Department of Epidemiology and Preventative Medicine, Monash University, and Deputy Director of Intensive Care, the Alfred Hospital, Prahran, Melbourne. Professor Pilcher has shown outstanding leadership and has been a strong advocate for the use of data in clinical settings to support quality and safety improvements. As Director of ANZICS, Adult Patient Database, Professor Pilcher has implemented rigorous processes to ensure data integrity and to ensure ongoing funding, which is an incredible achievement, ongoing funding of a bi-national resource. This proved significant value during the COVID-19 epidemic, and it was strong in its foundations for ANZICS database that enabled the rapid development of the CRIS system that showed in real time the ICU resources available at local, state and indeed national levels. The CRIS database provided itself to be crucial in supporting government decisions and decision making, particularly ensuring safety and quality in healthcare throughout this terrible pandemic. Professor Pilcher was responsible for the development of successful statistical techniques for feedback and benchmarking of individual ICU performance. He also developed a series of new severity illness adjustment models that went on to support a high level of safety. Over 250 research articles have been published by Professor Pilcher in the last 10 years, 250. An incredible achievement. Most recently, relating to safety and quality and patient outcomes. His work is recognised not only nationally but internationally as a world-leading influence. Professor Pilcher is an influencer of the best kind. Professor Pilcher's utmost dedication to patient safety and strongly reflected in his work has really, really helped us all. Congratulations, David, on this achievement, and congratulations on winning the award. Please come up and receive. I'll congratulate you. Please, if you'd like to say a couple of words.
Gosh. Thank you very much. I've also just realised it might be Brett Sutton's warm-up act. So, this truly is an honour, and I really am humbled and incredibly grateful to accept an award like this. When someone such as me is accepting this award, and I'm very much a clinician, and 2/3 of my time is spent in the ICU, I'm accepting it on behalf of the people that I work with, as much as accepting on my behalf. And there's many of the things that the ACHS does that are parallels with the interests that I have been involved in and the people that I've had the pleasure to work with. And I can safely say that if someone had said to me 20 years ago when I landed on Australian tarmac with my wife and then 2 young daughters that I was going to be standing here now, I would not have believed them. If you'll indulge me, I'll give you a couple of examples. I started an intensive care fellowship at the Alfred Hospital and have worked there ever since. In 2005, I became an intensive care specialist and was initially involved with Donate Life, and actually it was the Donate Life program that probably was one of the things that taught me that collaborating and using data in a comparative way is the best way to improve. And at the same time, I became involved with the Intensive Care Society, ANZICS. ANZICS is an organisation that has grown from being a professional society that represented doctors to being a professional society that represents all clinicians who are involved in looking after the critically ill patients. So doctors, nurses, allied health, anyone who's involved in it. And can be a focal point for all things related to intensive care, and is an organisation that spans across the borders. It's public and private people, it's regional and metropolitan, it's Australia and New Zealand. We've seen ANZICS grow over the last 10 years to now have essentially universal coverage of intensive cares in Australia and about 2/3 of the ICUs in New Zealand. And there's a strong history of collaboration with many organisations, and the ACHS was there at the beginning. One of the ACHS indicators is contribution to a registry, recognising that if you're not measuring it, you're probably not that good in the first place. So, and if you want to improve, if you want to move forward, you need to know where you are at the beginning. And that use of data is a principle that obviously underpins many of the activities of ACHS. It's not just, check it away. It's not just the collection of that data. More important than that is actually making sure it's fed back to the sites. And one of the things that the ANZICS team, and I'm going to highlight a few names as I go through, in particular Sue Huxon, who's been the manager, but also my colleagues in the management committee, Ed Litton, Paul Seacombe, Johnny Miller, Craig Carr, Shayla Chavan, and Jennifer Hogan, and more recently Tamishna Hensman as our early trainee, early career representative, have worked to make sure that the data goes back to the sites. You'll recognise this. This is what you guys do with ACHS. To inform how you improve the practice, how you compare, how you can move forward and improve the quality that we deliver to the patients. Inherent in that is, though, that you will identify outliers. And one of the things that we have been very active about doing is developing a program that appropriately investigates the data when we see an outlier and feeds that into an appropriate governance framework. And I genuinely believe that that's one of the reasons why Australian intensive cares actually have such a good outcomes. And it's one of the problems that we have when we actually put in public submissions for publications, is that people go, well, your outcomes are too good, that doesn't sound like a real ICU. It's because we see an active engagement in the measurement process to improve the outcomes of patients. As Len and Karen have highlighted, and Len mentioned earlier, I've also more recently been involved with Safer Care Victoria as the clinical lead for the Critical Care Network. Through them, being part of numerous projects, I'd highlight the development of the Victorian ECMO service as one of them. ECMO is a high-risk therapy delivered to the sickest patients. And the aim of the service, a statewide service, was to make sure it could be delivered to as many people as possible, because really there were only a handful of hospitals that were doing it, and now it's available, but to do it in such a way that it's safe and can be delivered with the best outcomes. What me and my colleagues didn't realise is that when we were doing all this work with ANZICS and with SCV, was that in 2020 we would then see the COVID pandemic, and there are ICU nurses everywhere, so I suspect there are some in this room. You'll all recognise that working in the ICU, you get the opportunity to work with fancy machines, to work with colleagues in an environment that's good, and also see people be with families at times when they're at their most vulnerable as relatives die. And that occurs in about 1 in 15 of our patients who come through the ICU. So as we watch the COVID-19 pandemic take off, initially in Wuhan and then northern Italy and London and in New York, it was without doubt distressing, exciting, wondering what was happening. There was a degree of almost panic, not knowing what was going to come through to Australia. And we had many conversations with many colleagues around the globe. And I was part and privileged to be part of the groups who put together the intensive care response, not only locally in Victoria, but also nationally. I'd highlight particular names like Stephen McLaughlin, my colleague and director of ICU at the Alfred for running the guidelines, Stephen Warrilow, Ni Nguyen in New South Wales, Deepak Bonagiri, Sean Kelly. I could keep going with the names. But there's one particular point in the process that sticks out for me and highlights the fact that I don't think I've ever come up with a good idea in my ever. But what I have done is managed to sit around in meetings where other people have come up with good ideas and then help them go off and do something with it. And we sat in a meeting in probably March 2020 where someone said, why would we let a patient die in WA if we can see a spare ventilator in Sydney? Suddenly that galvanised a response, and with my friends and colleagues at Ambulance Victoria, we leveraged a system that was being used locally and turned it into CHRIS, which was Len mentioned, which was essentially a dashboard view of all of the ICUs in the whole country, supported by the Commonwealth, working together with AHW. So if you're in your ICU, you could see how many patients were in the ICU down the road, how many COVID patients were there, how many spare ventilators were there, whether they were running out of PPE, how many staff they had off. That system got going in 3 to 4 weeks with Jason McClure and Mel Rose now, and a bunch of Telstra developers who were so keen to help us that they stayed up overnight working to make this system operational. What we didn't realise was how we were going to use it. And as we developed it in early 2020, the COVID wave dissipated. Actually, our ICUs were quiet then. In June 2020, a COVID wave came through Melbourne, particularly affecting more vulnerable populations, the elderly, aged care homes, culturally and linguistically diverse groups in northern and western Melbourne. And we started to use the system to identify ICUs that were coming under strain and move patients between the different ICUs, from ICUs that were full to ICUs that had more capacity. What we didn't realise was that really we were just doing a dry run for this time last year. So this time last year was a very different experience for us. When I go back to do my night shift in the ICU tomorrow, I'll go back to an ICU that has learned from last year, but last year was very different. And every morning last year, the local ICU directors, myself, Jason, who chaired the meetings, met and we checked through every ICU, making sure that how busy things were, whether we could assist in those different ICUs and transfer patients between the ICUs. It was truly a game of ICU Tetris, moving patients around to see where the capacity was. And I'm quite certain that that contributed to the outcomes that we saw, and the mortality for ventilated COVID patients in Australia is about half what it is in the rest of the world. And I don't think that system was the one thing that did it, but I'm absolutely certain that it's contributed to it. And it's a good example of us using data in an operational sense to inform how we do our practice, but that you need to do it in a way that collaborates and pulls people together. And this room is a good example of that. I've got to say, I'm glad that we're months down the track from that. We're now actually in a position to start looking back at some of that data and glean insights from it in a way that we didn't have time to before. And they will also inform us going forward. And I'll sort of finish there. Finish that with a couple of thank yous. I've highlighted a number of people as I went along who've been important to my journey through all of this. I'm very grateful indeed, and I recognise the work of the ACHS. And when I take back the medal tomorrow to the ICU, I'm taking it back on behalf of particularly all of the ICU clinicians who've been working very hard over the last couple of years. But I couldn't finish without recognising and saying the largest thank you to my wife, Alison, and my 3 daughters, Hannah, Izzy and Sarah, who put up with an awful lot, keep me grounded, and said to me, Dad, try not to embarrass yourself by crying when you say that.
There is no doubt that David is an absolute icon and an absolute privilege to see him get the medal this year. The medal is highly contested. It was a very, very competitive environment, and David, what you have just said it lifts us all and gives us faith for the future. So thank you. A round of applause again for David.
Congratulations, David, and congratulations to all our winners for their well-deserved awards. Please give them another hand. I also want to give special mention today to our 2021 ACHS medal winner, Christine G, who is with us here tonight, but was unable to celebrate in person last year due to the pandemic. It's great to have you here with us, Christine, and to be able to celebrate your achievements as well.
Now I'd like to virtually introduce our special guest for this evening, Victoria's Chief Health Officer, Professor Brett Sutton, who has prepared a special address for us tonight. Professor Sutton is an inspirational leader in public health, having served as a key advisory figure for the Victorian Government COVID-19 response. He's worked tirelessly to keep his state and the borders of Australia safe throughout this particular period. Professor Sutton has also made a significant contribution to international health through his emergency medicine and field-based international work across Kenya, Afghanistan and also Timor-Leste. He represents Victoria on a number of key national bodies, including AHPPC, and is the Chief Human Biosecurity Officer for Victoria. Professor Sutton is a Fellow of the Royal Society for Public Health, a Fellow of the Australasian College of Tropical Medicine. He's also a Fellow of the Australasian Faculty of Public Health Medicine. He's also, most importantly to me, an Osmateer, just like Osmat, of course, is Australian Medical Assistance Teams, and the tier comes with the fact that we are fairly frivolous in morbid circumstances, giving the very best responses. But just like Alison, Brett has deployed on a number of occasions as well, and I'm very, very proud and appreciative of that. So it gives me enormous pleasure to introduce a person I call a mate and a friend, Brett Sutton, and a special video that he has prepared for this evening. Thank you.
Hello, and thanks so much for the invitation to speak today. It's a real honour to be able to address you, and an absolute pleasure. I want to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which I'm standing, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and pay my respects to elders past and present. Quality and safety, what a fantastic opportunity to speak to it. And I have been in the midst and the hurly-burly of many issues around quality and safety through the last 2.5, 3 years. No surprise that I'll focus on COVID-19, but I would like to particularly focus on one aspect, and I think it lies at the heart of quality and safety issues. and that's the issue of COVID-19 transmission. And the big question of droplet transmission, fomite transmission, airborne transmission, it sounds reasonably straightforward. It was hugely controversial, remains controversial in some ways, but was hugely controversial through 2020, 2021 in particular. I think Victoria was a little bit at the heart of that with respect to that issue in Australia. But it played out around the world in fascinating ways, and I think ways that have lessons for me personally, and I think would have and should have lessons for anyone who's focused on quality and safety in healthcare settings. In a sense, it's not controversial. We've just had, through Nature, the journal, a consensus statement, 363 or thereabouts, experts on a panel chiming in, multiple authors, and a really robust Delphi process to come to very strong consensus recommendations, really for the entirety of pandemic control measures and responses. But one of the interesting features is that COVID-19 transmission, the issue of airborne transmission, and of increased risk in poorly ventilated indoor settings had 100% consensus, either strong agreement or agreement that COVID-19 was transmitted through an airborne route and was significantly increased in poorly ventilated indoor spaces. That sounds straightforward to me now, to us now maybe, but back in the day, that was not the case. It was certainly our challenge in the beginning of the pandemic that we didn't know all of the science. We didn't know what was going on, and there was emerging epidemiology, there was emerging case studies, and there was emergent multidisciplinary views on COVID-19 transmission. And in lots of ways, there was a bit of caution about jumping to conclusions, as there should be. We should take a relatively conservative approach in terms of the evidence base as it's beginning to be built. By the same token, we shouldn't jump to really definitive conclusions in the negative. And that was kind of problematic. It was problematic in March, April 2020, when WHO came out with a pretty definitive statement that COVID-19 was not airborne, despite the fact that there was growing evidence of transmission beyond that magical 1.5 metre range, and multiple disciplines going to WHO with, albeit emergent evidence and sometimes weak evidence, that it could be otherwise. So I think the issue is not so much that we didn't go to a definitive conclusion about COVID-19 being airborne. It's that we didn't globally, and including in Australia, in the early phase of the pandemic, speak to that uncertainty and communicate an open-mindedness about the possibilities. We were too definitive. I don't know if it was marked by the fact that we had a limited PPE supply, mask supply, both for healthcare workers and for the community in Australia and indeed globally, as demand was extraordinary. But that shouldn't have been a determinant of how we reviewed evidence and how we communicated that evidence, or whether it was, as has been reported in New York Times and elsewhere, the challenge of overturning historical inertia of 100 plus years, the so-called orthodoxy of transmission. And orthodoxy is not a bad thing. Orthodoxy speaks to wisdom of the ages, the accumulated wisdom of many, many, many years. But ortho, meaning straight, can lead you on a path that doesn't have the adaptability, the agility to move in new directions as required by the evidence before you or by the challenges before you. And I think that was a significant failure. I know the, who was it? Alberta Nursing AGM called out the failure to recognise airborne transmission as an egregious failure of the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm not sure it was the most egregious by any means, because there were issues of vaccine inequity that were much more significant, of the failure to deliver oxygen canisters around the world, the vaccine inequity both within countries and between countries. They were huge issues. But it was an issue of quality and safety, and it was an issue for healthcare workers around the world. So I think it's an important one to reflect upon. As I say, there was an orthodoxy that really held momentum beyond the time that it should have, and closed down a number of commentators and significant expert and influential global bodies, US CDC, WHO, and even our own ACHS, to explore a more nuanced approach and to communicate a greater nuance around the possibility of airborne transmission. And the evidence came from different areas, and I think it should have been spoken to at a much earlier time. I'm proud that Victoria came to a point, probably in June of 2020, where we were effectively acknowledging airborne transmission. That happened when N95 masks were used in aged care and hospital settings, but also where the masking for the community messaging was particularly strong. That was my view, again, formed without an absolute certainty about its effectiveness or the robustness of evidence, but taking the precautionary principle that there was very likely to be minimal harms against the very substantial possibilities of benefits that community masking and masking in those healthcare settings at a higher level than the standards that had been set previously, the surgical masks should be instituted in Victoria. I think that was really important as 1 in 3 infected individuals in aged care died of COVID at a time when we had no vaccines and no treatment, and at a time when hospital staff were significantly at greater risk of becoming infected than in the general community. That's a recognition of the transmission that was occurring despite the PPE standards that were in place at that time. There was, of course, debate around whether those healthcare workers picked it up outside of work or in work, but that was really answered over the subsequent months, where it was essentially shown that healthcare settings were a place of transmission that put healthcare workers at greater risk because patients had COVID-19, they were presenting with COVID-19. So it was a really important issue from a quality and safety perspective. That's it from me. I hope you have a wonderful awards night. I hope the safest and most quality-driven individual wins on the night. But please enjoy. I hope the background, I was told I should have a decent background. I hope the background's been okay. It's my world map, which I was meant to flag the 90-odd countries I've travelled to over the last 30 years, but have failed to do so yet. It's been a busy couple of years. I did have an alternative background here, but I thought that's possibly not for a professional gathering such as yours. But please have a wonderful time, and thanks again so much for the opportunity to speak today.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, friends, in true Brett Sutton style, there's a merchandise store out the front. You'll be able to get pillowcases, coffee mugs, and all sorts of other memorabilia that might prove useful in the future. I've been trying to persuade Alison to do the same, but she has remained too distinguished to do so. But Brett, there was a fine talk by Brett, and I'm sure each and every one of you appreciated it. He would have been here tonight had he been able to. He tried very hard to be, but wasn't able to. But a big round of applause again for Brett. From my own perspective, it's been an extraordinary evening, extraordinary in the sense I couldn't read anything, but other than that, it's been an absolute delight seeing everybody and being a part of it. I'd like to take an opportunity now to announce the inaugural ACHS President's Award for 2022. Now, it's inaugural. I don't know whether that means that I'm moving on or moving out or whatever else. but because as some of our friends that know the Northern Territory would know, there's a special ACHS-M, the other group, the college. There's a memorial award, which is the Len Nataris Scholarship, and there's something like 12 candidates a year over the last 3 years. The interesting part is I'm still alive at this stage. That sort of kind of, I wonder. I'm trying to get the message. Anyway, I'd like to take the opportunity to announce this particular award, and it's with enormous pride, and I mean this with the most genuine sentiment, that the first recipient is Dr. Philip Hoyle, the Director of Medical Services, Royal North Shore Hospital, and the Chair of the ACHS Standards Committee. Philip's a true champion of clinical governance and continues to inspire through his fabulous work. There is a rumour that he's tonight, the reason he isn't here is because he's performing with his band, whose name escapes me, but Freedom of Events. Oh, Radio Burn Man, okay. That's right. Well, I could have got it wrong. I could have said Midnight Oil, but anyway. And as Alison would say, now that CDC is so important, CDC is a major initiative. The Centre for Disease Control we've been waiting for many years, really. But Paul Kelly likes to talk about it as Australia's CDC, which is the ACHS, and there's a bit of a contest going on in high places as to whether it's going to be Back in the Black or Highway to Hell or what exactly the theme song is going to be. Having said all of that, it is now, I'd now like to offer a very sincere thank you to a very special person who is here tonight and is stepping down from the ACHS Council after 15 years, and a person who has made a contribution, and a significant contribution, since the 25th of June 2009. And that individual is none other than Professor Peter Kendall. And I thank you, Peter. Look, ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy the rest of the evening. Have the fellowship, the networking, at a COVID-safe space, and don't shake hands. Do not as I, but as I said. This is not the end of the COVID period. It is still continuing on. There are still aspects of it. It will continue on for a while. It's not the end of what we do in my particular area. We deal with, well, we started by dealing with sudden onset disasters, man-made and other ones that were of a natural nature, natural disasters. And on that, I'd spare a big thought tonight, and a sincere and deep, heartfelt thought for those people who have been dealing with floods and all of the other things that are occurring at the present moment. The world is an interesting place, a very sad place in many ways, whether it's the Crimea or whether it's what's happening with climate change and refugee movements. But there is a lot of work ahead, and a lot of work ahead for us. And please, let's not forget our friends, colleagues, families that are suffering with the climate events that are occurring right at this moment. Thank you, enjoy, have a safe evening, and a wonderful festive season. And I won't say much about what next year brings. Thank you.